So as we're going through the IEP, I've actually pulled out some examples. Now this wording is probably going to be very similar, but the setup of it is going to be different for some of you. In our state and around the country, there's a lot of different programs that people use to document their IEPs. So there's everything from PDFs to Seeds to Skyward. There's a whole bunch of different programs, and all of these are a little bit different. So if your IEP forms do not look exactly like this, please don't worry. These were just the ones I pulled examples from. I wasn't going to try to pull them from all the different systems. But every system does have this question. This is a fundamental question in an IEP. And it says, does the student need assistive technology, services, or devices, including any services or devices needed to assist with reading? And this is simply a checkbox, yes or no. Does the IEP team determine that the student does need or does not need assistive technology? Obviously, if the team is sitting around and says the student does not need assistive technology, it's not something that they would benefit from, that checkbox is a no, and at that point, this process pretty much stops. However, if the team sitting around the table says, yes, the student needs assistive technology, even if you're not sure what kind of assistive technology they may need, this box is going to be checked yes. And this is something, the consideration part that needs to happen with the IEP team. I have been in situations where I've came into a meeting where this checkbox is already marked no, and it's never really brought up beyond that at a meeting. So that's where you can kind of run into that legal trouble of, did the IEP team actually consider it? So it needs to be more than it's already checked on a piece of paper. The team actually needs to bring up this question and have that consideration. If yes, there's this next part of the question number 5, or this question. If yes, describe the needs. Now, this is a part of the IEP that's specific to describing what does the student need. Now, oftentimes, some teams may end up writing in here speech to text, text to speech, but this question is really asking, what are the students' needs? They're not really asking here what the AT is. That's going to come up later. But here they want to know, what are the students' needs? Do they need support with reading? Do they need support with writing? Do they need support with mobility? Describe what the needs are of the student that is making you say, yes, they need assistive technology. So again, we're not documenting AT here as much as we're documenting, why does the student need assistive technology? Why did the team feel that yes was appropriate? So that from there, we can move on then later in the IEP documenting what the student actually is going to be using. So if we're not going to document AT there, where is it going to be documented? There's a link here to a PDF handout that just kind of has some of those areas highlighted and kind of short descriptions of them. However, we do need to know, and I'm just going to bring out some of the points from that PDF. I'm not going to pull it up now, but if an AT shouldn't be documented in the needs section, then where does it go? And there's quite a few different places in IEP where AT may show up. So it could show up in a present level. So if a student is already using assistive technology, in the present level, you want to describe, how is that AT currently being used? Is it successful? What is the student using? In what scenarios is the student using it? How successful are they with it? That should all be described in the present level. So the next team picking up that IEP, or if the student leaves your district, is able to pick it up and know exactly what is the student using, in what circumstances, and how well is it going. So again, if a student is already using AT, it's going to be showing up in that present level. Under supplementary aids and services, this is where that devices part comes in. So if you determine, your team determines that a student needs assistive technology devices, so remember that could be any type of commercially made or modified item that your student's using. So this is where you're going to be documenting, the text to speech, speech to text, wheelchair, word prediction, screen enlargement, all of those things are going to be put in under supplementary aids and services. Related services is that next section, and that's where services are going to go. So if your team determines that the student needs an assistive technology evaluation and they need time that an adult or another person spends with them, or if the student is learning assistive technology and the team feels that it is important that a person provides assistive technology services for the student to learn and practice using the tool, that's going to go under related services. So there's kind of those two separate areas. Sometimes it can get a little bit confusing for people because related services will actually say AT services. And so sometimes people will want to put the devices there. So again, remembering that the devices go under supplementary aids and services. So let's go into just a little bit more. The present level, you're going to talk about what is the current student's use? What are they using? How is it working for them? How is it benefiting them? If there's a specific device that the student is successfully using, here is where you can document a specific device. You're going to say here that the student is using this specific communication device with this specific program, or they're using this specific screen enlargement tool. You can go ahead and name a specific device or tool here in the present level. If there's been an assistive technology evaluation, those results can go here as well. Again, remember our goal in the present level is to really give that picture of what is the student currently doing, including the use of assistive technology. Under supplementary aids and services, this is where you're going to describe the features of the AT. Here, you do not want to give a specific name or brand. If you're looking at something like text to speech, but you give a specific brand name of a tool here, that means if that tool no longer works, which sometimes we know with online services, things are down or programs end, you don't have the ability to switch to a different brand or a different tool that does the same thing. So here you want to describe what are the features of the tool. Because remember, we really want our students to have the right features, not necessarily a specific brand. Okay, again, there's a whole bunch of tools out there that do speech to text. What are the specific features of speech to text that your student needs? You're going to write that here so that if you need to switch from one tool to another, as long as it still does that feature or has that feature, you're good to go. So example, using speech to text, not Dragon Naturally Speaking. This section should address those needs that you wrote in the previous section. So when you mark that checkbox yes, and you describe the needs, here is where you should be putting the tools or the devices that address those particular needs. But again, what if a team's unsure of what a student needs? Okay, in that case, you're going to be writing that yes, the team feels like the student needs assistive technology, but maybe you're not going to put anything in supplementary aids and services yet because it's still being trialed. In some instances, if you think the student needs speech to text, that might be able to go into the supplementary aids and services while an evaluation is going on to figure out which type of tool, which brand, or which features are going to be best. However, you also can give a thing during that section of describe the student's needs. You definitely can make a statement saying that the team will be evaluating the student's needs and trialing assistive technology. And that's going to kind of make everybody aware that while there may not be something in supplementary aids and services yet, it's in the process of getting there. Things will be getting trialed. Under related services. Now, some districts do this differently. So I'm going to walk through what related services are in assistive technology and when this would be used. Keeping in mind that different special education directors will want this documented differently. So if you're unsure of how this should be documented in your district, I would highly recommend talking to your special education director and seeing how it is that your district documents these things. So related services are the things that a student needs to benefit from special education. It's the service that a person spends time with a student. So this, again, should not be where you're going to mark assistive technology and then write text to speech or things here. This is the person time. So again, the definition of service from the law. So again, anybody that is providing students with the evaluation of, selection of, acquisition of, or use of assistive technology. And you're going to put the frequency and amount. This is the amount of time that somebody is spending with the student to either select, acquire, or use assistive technology. Now, a lot of times the question will come up, who can provide AT services? Because if you look at a lot of the other related services areas like audiology or PT or OT, Typically, there is a licensed person that is the person that has to provide those services. For assistive technology, the line is that anyone with sufficient knowledge of the AT device that the student's using can provide these services. That means if there is a teacher that is really great with speech to text tools and they're spending time teaching the student directly how to do it, that can count towards the assistive technology minutes for that student if they're working with that same tool and have sufficient knowledge to teach the student how to do it. So unlike some of these other areas, there's no certification or licensing required. Again, it needs to be somebody with a sufficient knowledge of the AT device. Now, in some districts, again, this may get lumped in with OT or PT. I know of one district that if it is a communication device, it goes under SLP minutes and it's not written separately as assistive technology. So again, if you're unsure of how this should be documented, talk with your special education director, just because there is some differentiation on how different districts want that written. So if a team decides that, you know what, the student needs assistive technology and there's an AT evaluation going on, or the student is trying different things, where do we document that? Typically, you're going to want to document those trials in the present level. So if a student is trialing different types of assistive technology, different brands, different types of equipment, it's important that you're going to document what works and what doesn't work for the student. This is important because if maybe at the next IEP or 2 years down the road, the conversation comes up around the IEP table of, hey, you know, have we ever tried this? Maybe this would work for the student. Being able to go back and know what's been tried in the past, what's worked, what hasn't worked, why did you pick what you picked for the student? Why did the student pick what they picked? What did they feel was most beneficial? Really will kind of eliminate, you know, a whole lot of different types of trials when you already have a starting place. It also tells professionals what doesn't work. Because students work with a wide variety of educational professionals, everybody has different things that they're more familiar with. And so it definitely helps for a team to be able to read the present level from the past year or the past IEP and be able to say, wait a second, these particular tools didn't work well for that student, so we're not going to go down that route right now.